Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. I am Louise, this is Sewing Daze, and today I'm going to be running through my top 10 pieces of equipment that I can't live without. Now these are personal preference, some of you may think I've missed things, some of you may also love the things that I've included, but let us know your opinion down below. So if you want to leave us a comment, please do. I love to see what you guys think are your absolute essentials. As well as that, you can like this video, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell, and then every Tuesday when we post a new video, you will be one of the first to find out. As always, all of the items I mention will also be tagged in the description box down below. Also, I have a bonus 11th tip of something that I always make sure that I keep in my creative stash, so stay tuned to find out what our bonus tip is at the end of this video. Now in the shop I get asked a lot about what are great pieces of equipment for existing crafters, brand new crafters, and things that can be bought as gifts. Now these top 10 are items that I think you will never regret buying, and they will make your life a lot easier. I'm going to include some that are great for all crafters, some that are better for quilters or knitters or crocheters, but I'm hoping there'll be something in there for everyone. This top 10 is not in any particular order, they're just 10 items that I really can't live without. Let's get started. So the first item I want to recommend is using a thimble. So thimbles are made to protect the end of your thumb when you are hand stitching or sewing in any ends, and to be honest, the old style ones were a little bit uncomfortable. They were like metal bell shapes that slipped onto the end of your finger. They did protect it, but they weren't very comfortable. They didn't always fit well, but my recommended item is a silicone one. This thimble is from Prim, and the thing I love about it is that it comes in various sizes. So we have 4 different sizes in the shop, so you can make sure that you get the one that fits your finger best. The other great thing about them is that they are made from silicone, so they fit really snugly onto your finger. They're not going to fall off, and the end is still completely solid. I always recommend these to people, even if you're not doing too much hand sewing. Any hand sewing that you do, your life will be made a lot easier by this. So my next item that I can't live without are stitch markers. Now these are great for anyone doing knitting or crochet and needing to count your stitches. Some people use them to count their stitches along a row. Sometimes people use them to use their stitches up. If you're doing amigurumi, which is a type of crochet where you start in the middle and work out in a spiral, these are also really great to show you where the beginning of each round is. So the markers look like this. They are like tiny little padlocks, so you can put it through your piece of work, click the end in, and then it won't come off. I'm currently working on a blanket which uses a beehive pattern, so it looks a bit like a honeycomb. It's lots of hexagons, and these markers were completely invaluable when I started making those, to make sure that I had the right number of stitches across the bottom of my blanket and that I was keeping the pattern where it needed to be. This blanket is crochet, but they work really well for knitting as well, like I said, and they just make it a lot easier than having to try and count where you are every time. I tend to use the markers every 10 or 20 stitches, so if I lose count, I've only got to go back to the last marker to find out where I am and where I've gone wrong most of the time as well. The great thing is you can use them again and again and again, as long as you make sure you keep them somewhere safe. I can't recommend these enough. Anybody knitting and crochet, these will just make your life so much easier. So my next item is something to help with your measuring. Now I've left that a little bit vague because different things work for different people, so I wanted to show you what your options are, and these are things that generally are really helpful regardless of which craft you're doing. Being able to measure what you're working on is absolutely invaluable. Now to start off, there's obviously the traditional tape measure. These have been around for years. They normally have inches on one side and centimeters on the other, and they are absolutely great. Now the next step up from that is what I have used most in the past. It is another tape measure. So these ones are retractable. You pull the end of the tape measure, and then when you press the button in the middle of the circle, it goes back in. These ones are really good, and you don't spend your life rolling the tape measures back up. The little button does it for you. Now these come in lots of different colours, but they also come in lots of different designs. Now this is my favourite one. They come in rabbits and tigers and all sorts of things, but I love pandas. So you pull his little fluffy tail out, you measure what you need, press his little nose, and it pops straight back in. These are really good. They're great for gifts, they are great for kids, and it's nice to have your equipment looking a little bit fun. There is also the option of using acrylic rulers, but I'm going to cover those in a minute. Now, my next piece of equipment is probably one of the most important, or it's definitely something that I use the most. It is having a good pair of scissors. Now, I'm going to say good pair of scissors and emphasize that. We've all done projects with really blunt scissors. They're not very good for cutting or snipping, and they're so frustrating. I always think it's best to invest in a really good pair of scissors that are going to last you a long time. Also, I would just like to say that I have a pair of scissors that are only used for cutting fabric. Everybody knows that if you cut anything with the purple scissors except fabric, you're probably going to be in trouble. I know a lot of you crafters are probably exactly the same as me. I have a friend whose husband stole her fabric scissors out of the cupboard and used them to separate sausages, and I mean, my fabric scissors are for fabric, and I'm quite funny about that, because when you invest the money in a really good pair that you're comfortable with, that stay sharp for ages, you don't want them to be used on anything that might ruin that. Now, depending on what project you're working on, you might want a different size scissor. So if you're doing something like knitting or crochet and it's to cut your ends, you're probably only going to want a small pair, or something like this. This is a really nice size for most projects. Next, it moves up to a slightly bigger pair, where if I was going to be cutting fabric or slightly bigger pieces, I would definitely use something a bit more of a similar size to this. These ones are from Prim, and they are really comfortable to use, which I know is really important if you have arthritic hands, or you know you're going to be using them a lot. You don't want anything that is uncomfortable. But for me, my go-to pair of scissors are these purple micro serrated ones from Prim. Now, there's lots of different micro serrated ones on the market, but these are the ones that I use and that I stock, because I would never stock something in the shop that I wouldn't personally use myself. So most blades have got a chamfered sharp edge along the side of them, but micro serrated scissors are, like it sounds, micro serrated. So you know the wobbles on the bottom of a bread knife that makes it easier to cut? Now, these scissors have got that same shape on both parts of the blade. So I'll just show you these. Hopefully you can see them, but I will try and get the best shot possible. They do have a very slight wave on the blade, but that just means they stay sharper for longer, you get more exact cuts. And these scissors I've had since I opened the shop in 2017, so for nearly 4 years, and I have never sharpened them. I'm in love with these scissors, and I can't recommend them highly enough. Next up is one of my favorite things I have ever bought, and it is this Prim cutter. The blade is on the inside of the teardrop shape. In my opinion, these are absolutely brilliant because you can wear it around your neck. You don't lose it down the side of the sofa when you're cutting your ends if you're knitting or crocheting. You can use it for threads if you're doing cross stitch and embroidery. And because the blade is concealed and can't be got out easily, you can normally take these on a plane. Now, obviously don't hold me to that. Every airline has different guidelines that they follow, but I have taken this on a flight before. These ones are really great if you're traveling, if you're doing it on the sofa and you lose your scissors down the side, or I take mine a lot if I'm crocheting in the car or on the train or when I'm on the go. These are great for all crafters regardless of whether you knit, sew or crochet. So my next piece of equipment is actually 3 pieces of equipment, but they are better used when you use them all together. These are a rotary cutter, a ruler and a mat. Using a rotary cutter, a board and a ruler will allow you to get really clean cuts and make all of your measuring extremely accurate. The reason they are so accurate is because you don't lift the fabric as you're cutting it. So as you put a pair of scissors underneath your fabric, even if it's laid flat on the table, you will obviously need to lift it to get the bottom blade underneath. By using a rotary cutter, you cut straight down on top of it, a bit like a pizza wheel, and you will get a much cleaner cut. Now, rotary cutters, boards and rulers come in lots of sizes. The prices vary. A larger mat and ruler will cost you more than a smaller mat and ruler. The mats are normally centimeters on one side and inches on the other. The other thing that's great about the rotary cutters is that you only really, unless you lose it, only ever need to buy one. You can replace the blade separately, so rather than every time your blade gets a bit blunt you having to buy a whole new rotary cutter, you can just buy the blades separately and then change them in and out. This is something that I always recommend to anybody who's starting out with their sewing life. So they are slightly more pricey of the things that I've included in this list, but they are a real investment, and like I said, once you've bought one, you don't need to buy another one. Having said that, some quilters absolutely love a ruler. They'll have a 12-inch square, a 9-inch square, a 4-inch square, long rulers, short rulers, thin rulers, all of the rulers. So having said you only really need to invest in one when you're starting out, there are so many options, and a lot of people like to have more than one. But for something basic for beginners, a rotary cutter, ruler and mat is something you will never regret buying. So number 7 on my list is some pins. Now this is something else that comes in various sizes and kinds, and good for some fingers and not so good for other fingers, and long and short and all different kinds. The first kind you're probably thinking of when I mention pins are plastic round head pins. So these are the ones that your nan probably had, that they come normally on a rosette, so you get lots of different colours. The next step up, which is what I normally recommend for sewers, are the flower head pins. Now the great thing about flower head pins is because the end is flat rather than a bobble, it does go underneath your sewing machine foot. Now not your needle, do not sew through them with your sewing machine needle. It will snap your needle, it will break off, and we don't want that. Health and safety, no, 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 please be careful guys. The flower head pins go underneath the foot part so that you don't have to pull them out every single time, as long as you make sure it's not in the way of your needle. They're also very easy to hold because they're flat. They're a bit better for people who aren't quite so nimble with their fingers anymore, and for me, I just think they're a little bit prettier as well. The last type of pin that I wanted to highlight are curved safety pins. If you're quilting or sewing, these safety pins are absolutely brilliant. They're always something that I highly recommend as one of the first things you buy when you're getting started. The great things about these safety pins are if you're moving an item from one place to another, these do stay in place. And also, because they're curved, when you pop them through your piece of fabric or whatever your project is, they automatically come back out. You can keep your item almost completely flat and then use the curved safety pins to make your life a lot easier. Item number 8 is something that ties in with the pins that we've just spoken about, and that is having a magnetic pin cushion. I think that although pin cushions are brilliant and any kind of pin cushion is great, magnetic ones make your life just a little bit easier. Now again, as with all of these, there are various versions of a magnetic pin cushion. There is this blue one from Prim, which is a circle, so it just keeps all of your pins in one place. It sort of looks like a little dish. Another kind that we have that is basically a prettier version of the same thing is the Prim Love one with the polka dots. Now the Prim one comes with all of these pins already attached to it, which is really, really great, and this one is something I quite often recommend as a gift. And the third kind is a magnetic wrist pin cushion. These work a bit like snap bands if you ever had those as a kid or your children had them. They work really, really, really well. They go around your wrist, they fit any size, and they hold the pins exactly where you need them. Like I said before, any pin cushion is great, but for me, magnetic ones are just that little level up that will make your life a bit easier. Okay, so piece of equipment number 9 is an unpicker. This is the best pound you will ever spend. We've all been in a situation where we've been sewing along either with our machine or by hand and something's gone wrong, it's got caught, it's got tangled. Unpickers are absolutely invaluable. They make taking stitches out a lot quicker. They rip the stitches rather than your fabric, as long as you're careful. We've all accidentally ripped a hole when we've been unpicking. Sometimes these do come free with your sewing machines, but if you're not using your sewing machine or you've lost it over the years, you just don't know where it is, these are absolutely brilliant. Also, if you make buttonholes, these are great for the middle of your buttonholes once you have sewn them in place. They do have a little spike on the end, so it is definitely something to be careful of, but the best pound you will ever spend in a craft shop is an unpicker. So item number 10 is something that I probably should have included a little bit earlier because I definitely think it's one of the most important things, and that is storage. So you might have just got all of the items I spoke about, but you've lost them all because you don't have anywhere to keep them. Storage is such an important thing, particularly if you either craft on the go or you don't have a designated space. But to be honest, even if you do have a craft room or a specific chair that you always sit in, keeping everything together means that it's exactly where you need it to be when you need to use it. This one's a little bit hypocritical because this is definitely something that I need to reassess for myself, and I definitely need to invest in a bit more storage because my go-to kit looks like this. It is a clear plastic tub and a little zippy wallet on the top. It works perfectly for what I need it to do, so it is complete proof that your storage doesn't have to be fancy. But it is always fun to get a pretty storage box or some sort of plastic storage to keep everything you need together. My zippy wallet keeps all of my crochet items together so that in theory I don't lose any items that I have in there, and all of my sewing machine accessories are in this plastic tub just here. Everybody's storage works in a different way, but as long as you make sure you have everything together and it's easy to access and you can find everything you need, storage is a biggie. Now I know I said 10, but my 11th bonus tip is to always have a kit at home. Having a kit at home is something that when you're feeling uninspired or you don't have all the materials that you need to do a specific project but you're still feeling creative, having a craft kit will keep you busy, keep your creative juices flowing, and everything you need will be in the box already. So you can get lots of different kits like sewing, embroidery, knitting patterns, crochet patterns, anything that will keep you busy and comes all together. Kits are also a great gift. I quite often get them as a gift for my birthday or for Christmas. There's been many Sunday afternoons where all I've wanted to do was create, felt like I had no idea what I wanted to do, just stared at a piece of fabric for a while, couldn't get any enthusiasm, and just thought, do you know what, actually, I will do a kit. So I always keep a kit or two, and then depending on what I fancy, I will keep myself occupied with one of those. So definitely something to keep in mind, and definitely something that can be bought as a gift. So that is my list of must-have pieces of equipment that will make any crafter's life easier. Please let me know what you think. Have I missed anything obvious? Is there anything that I've included that you can't live without? Please let us know in the comments down below, and we might include them in a later video. Everything I've mentioned is going to be in the description box down below, so if you want to check out any of the items I've talked about, you can just click the link and it will take you straight to the website. As I said before, we would completely appreciate if you could like this video, subscribe to our channel, and then you can be the first to see our weekly Tuesday videos. We have tons of other crafting content on our channel, so feel free to go and have a watch. Until then, we will see you next week. Have a good day, guys.